Thank you all so much. It's an honor to be back to address Kentucky Farm Bureau. And how about a round of applause for not just those who served us today, but the farmers that helped put food on our lunch plates today. Thank you so much for what you all do. You know, it's cold outside. It was a really brisk Thanksgiving, and it brings back some family memories on my family farm. And maybe a few of you can relate to this, but whenever it's cold around Thanksgiving or Christmas break, my dad started using terms like family bonding, character building. And of course, when I was a kid, I knew that translated into stripping tobacco. And Zippy, for those of you maybe from out of state, when we refer to the term stripping room, it may not be what first comes to mind, but that's where a lot of Kentucky farm families spend their holidays building character. And it was there when I first learned what the word incentive meant. See, my brother and I always had to meet quota when we were stripping tobacco. And if we didn't make quota that day, the incentive was the heat was turned off the next day. And so we had to earn our heat when we were stripping tobacco. But I know that for a lot of farm families, harvest time means spending time with your family. I want to say thank you to Farm Bureau. You know, not a day goes by where the Kentucky Department of Agriculture and Kentucky Farm Bureau does not work together hand in glove as a unified voice in a Frankfort. It really is something that's uncommon in a lot of states, but here in Kentucky, we work together consensus driven. So I just want to say thank you, Mark, and your team up here for everything that you do. Drew, congratulations. Looking forward to continuing to work with you in your new capacity. And Fritz, thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you've done. I look forward to working with you on the Ag Development Board. Thank you for your service with Kentucky Farm Bureau. And President Duval, we're really excited to have you here today. I've had a chance to spend some time with him over the last couple years. He is a great leader. We're glad that you're spending today in Kentucky. We really appreciate that. And recently, Mark called me and said, Zippy and his wife want to go watch the Georgia Bulldogs play UK, and he couldn't make it. And so one of the tough parts of my job is that I threw myself on the sword and had to go to that UK football game. And Zippy and his wife, Bonnie, are devoted football fans, especially his wife. And we didn't have security that day, but Zippy and his wife were 2 specks of red in a sea of blue. And it was, I wish we'd won that game, but we're so glad to have you out there. And beforehand, I got the opportunity to take him to our farm. And we'd not have him change from Georgia red to UK blue, but we did get him on an Alice Chalmers tractor. So I think we turned him orange that day. We really do appreciate that so much. Folks, it's a tough year. Make no bones about it. Tough production year, rolling off 2017, record yields. Good times for a lot of folks. Things were looking really good this year until we had some bad weather. We've been focusing with bad weather, some credit crunch issues, effects of retaliatory tariffs, quality issues, a lot of beans still out in the field. Dairies has issues as well. Uncertainty of the Farm Bill, which we might have some news about as soon as today. And our cash receipts, as you saw earlier today, will remain stable, about $5.7 billion. We did just get a little bit of good news. We had 16 counties in central Kentucky receive disaster declaration relief status. I hope it will enable some farmers to have ability to access some funds and capital that otherwise they will not be available. But we're here for you. The Kentucky Department of Agriculture is listening. The Governor's Office of Ag Policy is listening. And Kentucky Farm Bureau continues to be a voice for you in Frankfort and in Washington, D.C., despite our production issues this year. Even in times of uncertainty, we have hope. And I have hope in you because you're not just the best, but you represent the best in the world. You're part of the safest, most abundant food supply system ever known in the history of man. And it gives me hope about the future. And with $1 trillion of our gross domestic product coming directly from agriculture, I know that we can continue to innovate our ways out of tough times, especially when we have conversations about ag technology. That's a conversation we're going to continue to have about attracting innovation, entrepreneurs, and let those businesses who help lead the way until tomorrow have them locate here. We're going to continue to have that conversation. We're going to continue our exploration into alternative crops such as industrial hemp, hops, canaf, and putting more Kentucky corn into Kentucky bourbon as they continue their market growth right now. But one of the strengths that we have, unlike our friends in those I states, where their ag economies revolve around 3 or 4 commodities, here in Kentucky we have diversity. Now, I've done this before, and at risk of doing it again, I'm going to ask you to do one thing. If you have ever worked in tobacco at any time in your life, raise your hand. Now, watch this, Zippy. If you're working in tobacco in 2018, keep your hand up. That shows you right there, with the 3,000 tobacco farmers we have left in our state, down from a high of 85,000 in the mid-90s, Kentucky agriculture had no choice but to diversify and change. And due to decisions decades ago with the Ag Development Board and our funds, we've been able to diversify our way out and give our farmers options. And that's one reason why we're doing better, and we have insulated ourselves compared to other states, because we had no choice but to do something different. And it's up to the good old-fashioned grit of our farmers and be able to innovate our way through the future. One thing we need to continue to do is be an unabashed advocate for international trade. If you are pro-agriculture, you are pro-trade. It's about creating new markets across the world. And I want to say a personal thank you to Kentucky Farm Bureau for helping sponsor our first ever agriculture trade mission led by the World Trade Center, my department, and we decided to go to Kentucky's #1 buyer of international ag goods, and that's Canada, our friends in the north. They buy 20% of all agriculture exports out of our state. And Eddie and Joe joined me, as well as the ambassador to the United States, a Kentucky farm girl, Ambassador Kelly Craft, in Canada earlier this year, before the new NAFTA 2.0 USMCA was negotiated. It's important that we continue to look for markets outside of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That way we can continue to make sure that when we talk about our state, it's not just about bourbon, it's not just about racehorses, and it's not just about Colonel Sanders. It's about everything else that Kentucky can have to offer on a world scale. It's also important to say thank you to Kentucky, to Farm Credit Mid-America, Alltech, the Kentucky Distillers Association, the Kentucky Thoroughbred Association, and World Trade Center for making this mission possible. And we hope this sets the tone of the first in many ways that we can bring agriculture to the rest of the world, because the truth of the matter is Kentucky needs international trade, but more importantly, the rest of the world needs Kentucky agriculture. So we're going to continue to be that leading edge. Another announcement that I have today is that we continue to be that intermediate entity between the United States Department of Ag, the EPA, the FDA, and the farm level. The new FSMA implementation is occurring around the United States today, and when given the chance of either letting the FDA on your farm or let the Kentucky Department of Agriculture in a cooperative agreement with UK Extension and Public Health, we made the decision to keep the FDA off your farm. And so for you produce producers, we encourage you to work with us, and we're hiring a team of farm, common sense people like Ben Connor here, Kentucky Farm Kid, to help implement FSMA across the state. And we take a lot of pride in saying we kept FDA off the farm, and we're looking forward to working with you and staying compliant. And in closing, I just want to say I'm so enthusiastic to be here to help celebrate 100 years of Kentucky Farm Bureau, and how rare that is that an organization that started a century ago is more relevant now than ever. That's very uncommon in American history. And if you want to go back 100 years, just fancy me for a second. World War I had just ended. The flu epidemic was still killing people around the world. Farmland was selling on average for $227 an acre. Corn yields in Kentucky were 23 bushels an acre. Wheat was 14 bushels an acre. And the most famous celebrity in the United States was a silent film star named Charlie Chaplin, which reminds me, those were the good old days when our celebrities were silent. And I just want to say, I love my job. I love advocating for you. You make my job easy because of how good of a job that you do on your farm. When I go to Frankfurt, when I go to Washington, D.C., when I travel the globe selling Kentucky agriculture, it's because of the job that you do that makes me proud to be your agriculture commissioner. I'm going to be here for the rest of the day, happy to answer any questions. My staff is here, and if you're an employee of the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, would you please stand to be recognized? Thank you for your service to the Commonwealth. Yep. And in this spirit of celebration, we have one last announcement today, is that due to the generosity of Kentucky Farm Bureau and UK Athletics, the newest baseball stadium in America is just opening right now at UK, $49 million complex. Kentucky Farm Bureau secured the naming rights for that, and they decided to do something bigger than just Kentucky Farm Bureau. They decided to celebrate agriculture as a whole. And through partnership with them and UK and Kentucky Proud, we are proud to say that the new UK baseball stadium will be called Kentucky Proud Park. And Mark, thank you, Mr. Sparrow, for everything that you do. This is going to be an anchor facility for all of Kentucky agriculture to celebrate what's best about farmers and agribusinesses across our state. And I know this may hurt you, but go Cats. We appreciate that. And in this spirit, President Duvall, I just want to say thank you for going to bat for not only Kentucky agriculture, but American agriculture. So we have a great Kentucky Proud product for you here today. You might need this in Washington, D.C. some days, but a Louisville Slugger baseball bat. Thank you for what you do at American Farm Bureau.
Thank you.
Hope you all have a Merry Christmas, and be sure to make your Christmas a Kentucky Proud one, and be sure to buy Kentucky Proud. Thank you very much.
Great job.